Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today we're tackling something that sounds a bit like science fiction, honestly. Quantum immortality.
It definitely has that sci-fi ring to it.
Yeah, but it's actually rooted in some, well, pretty serious quantum theory. So our mission today is to unpack this idea, the concept that maybe, just maybe, a conscious observer never actually experiences their own death.
It's a wild one.
It really is. And the sources we look into, they present a really surprising, thought-provoking perspective on reality. Okay, so let's get grounded first. To even start talking about quantum immortality, we need to touch on quantum mechanics.
Right, the basics.
Yeah. So remind us, what is it exactly?
Well, it's the science that governs how things work at the tiniest scales. You know, atoms, electrons, photons, the fundamental building blocks.
Got it, the really small stuff.
Exactly. And there are a couple of key ideas from quantum mechanics we need here.
Okay.
First is superposition. This basically means a particle can be in multiple states, like multiple places, at the same time.
Like being both heads and tails while the coin is spinning.
Kind of, yeah. Until you look, it's in this fuzzy state of possibilities. And second, there's the traditional idea of wave function collapse.
Right. That's the idea that when you observe it...
Precisely. When you observe or measure the particle, its wave function, this description of its possibilities, it collapses. It's forced into just one single definite state.
Okay, standard quantum mechanics, observation changes things.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where it gets really interesting, isn't it? I remember reading about Hugh Everett's idea from, 1957? The many worlds interpretation?
Ah, yes, MWI. That definitely puts a twist on things.
How so? How does it change that wave function collapse idea?
Well, Everett said, what if the wave function never actually collapses?
Never collapses. So what happens to all the possibility?
They all happen. Every possible outcome of a quantum event happens, just in separate, parallel universes.
Wow, okay. So the coin flip example.
Right. Instead of collapsing to heads or tails in our world, the universe splits. In one universe, it lands heads. In a completely separate one, it lands tails.
And the person flipping the coin.
Splits, too. This is crucial. The observer also branches, with one version seeing heads and another seeing tails, each in their own universe. They both think their outcome is the only one.
Okay, hold on. So every tiny quantum event, every choice, is constantly splitting reality, creating endless versions of, well, us.
According to MWI, yes, it's a mind-bending picture. Infinite branches.
My head is definitely spinning a bit now. It's not just multiple universes, it's multiple yous.
Exactly.
And that's the connection, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's how we get to quantum immortality.
That's the leap.
It seems best explained through that modified Schrodinger's cat thing, the quantum suicide thought experiment. It sounds grim, but...
It is a bit grim, but it illustrates the point starkly. Imagine an experiment, okay? It's set up so that a person's life depends on a quantum event.
Like measuring the spin of a particle.
Yeah, something random at the quantum level. Let's say if the particle spins up, a gun fires, and the person dies. If it spins down, the gun clicks harmlessly, they live.
Okay.
Now, run this experiment. According to many worlds, what happens?
The universe splits.
Right. In every single trial, the universe branches. There's a universe where the particle spins up, the gun fires, and that version of the person dies. But there's also always a universe where the particle spins down, the gun clicks, and that version of the person survives.
And from the person's perspective, inside the experiment.
Think about their subjective experience. Consciousness, according to this idea, only continues in the branches where survival occurs. You can't experience the branch where you die, obviously. So
You'd only ever find yourself in the timeline where the gun didn't fire.
exactly. From your point of view, run the experiment once, 10 times, a million times. You always survive because your consciousness only persists in the surviving branches. You become, in a sense, subjectively immortal.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot. So consciousness just naturally follows the survival path.
That's the core assumption, yes.
So this hinges on some pretty big ifs then. What are the key assumptions?
Well, there are two main ones we absolutely need for this to work. First, like we said, consciousness only continues in the surviving branches. It doesn't experience death.
Right. The subjective viewpoint.
And second, the branching itself is essentially infinite, as long as there's any non-zero chance of survival in a quantum event linked to death.
There's a branch where you make it.
And your awareness continues down that path.
Okay, it's fascinating, truly. But we need to be critical here. It sounds amazing, but what are the problems? The scientific, maybe philosophical challenges to quantum immortality.
That's a really important question, and there are significant challenges.
I bet. Can you even test this?
Well, that's the first major hurdle. Quantum immortality as a concept isn't really a testable scientific hypothesis. You can't design an experiment to prove or disprove your subjective immortality.
Right, because the you that dies in another branch can't report back.
Exactly. And while MWI itself is a serious interpretation of quantum mechanics, it's not the only one. There's no definitive experiment yet that proves MWI over, say, the Copenhagen interpretation where collapse does happen. MWI lacks that smoking gun empirical evidence.
So it's built on an interpretation that itself isn't universally accepted or proven.
Correct. And then you have the issue of consciousness, linking quantum branching directly to the path of consciousness. Well, that takes us beyond physics into speculative metaphysics.
Into philosophy, really.
Yes. And there are logical criticisms, too. For example, what does identity even mean across these splits? Is the you that survives really the same you? The continuity is fuzzy.
That's a good point, if you're constantly splitting.
And think about probability. In situations where the chance of survival is tiny, say 0.001%, the measure, or sort of amount of reality represented by those surviving branches becomes infinitesimally small. Does consciousness reliably find its way to these incredibly improbable branches? MWI doesn't give a clear answer.
So even if technically possible, it might be overwhelmingly unlikely you'd experience that survival branch.
It's a valid critique, and maybe the biggest practical point. This doesn't stop aging.
Ah, right. It's about surviving specific quantum-triggered fatal events, not biological decline.
Exactly. Aging, disease, running out of oxygen. These things aren't necessarily tied to quantum chance in the way the thought experiment assumes. So quantum immortality wouldn't mean living forever in the usual sense. It might just mean you don't experience death from, say, a random quantum-triggered explosion, but you'd still age and eventually die from other causes.
Okay, so putting it all together, it's an incredibly intriguing idea, pushes boundaries,
It
but...
remains a speculative thought experiment. It's based on an unproven interpretation of quantum mechanics and involves deep philosophical assumptions about consciousness and identity. It's not established science.
And definitely not accepted scientific truth.
No.
So we've taken quite the journey there into quantum immortality.
Yeah.
It really sits at this wild intersection of physics, philosophy, and what it even means to be conscious.
It absolutely does. And it highlights how weird quantum mechanics really is, especially when you start thinking about interpretations like many worlds. It's rooted in the math, but the implications are staggering.
Yeah, rooted in theory, but still very much a thought experiment, like you said.
Definitely speculative.
So let's leave our listeners with this thought then, bringing this all together. What does this imply for your understanding of reality, of life, of death? If, at its deepest level, the universe is constantly branching, creating countless possibilities, and maybe, just maybe, some part of our awareness subjectively follows those branches where we continue to exist, what does that really mean?